Week, don't know what, in lockdown. Hope you're keeping well. I'm just going to go through Sherlock Holmes lesson 5. I'm also setting work for Miss James's class 9p3, so welcome 9p3. I've been recording these videos to go through the lessons. The idea is you're meant to watch this video after you've done the lesson. Okay, so I'm going to skip the 5 a day. Wonder if I get the screen up, if you can still see me probably. Okay, I'm going to skip the 5 a day. Basically, what we're looking at is his description of criminals and inference, what we can sort of determine from his description of criminals. So it says here, the criminals in Sherlock Holmes stories are often described as having a striking physical characteristics that set them apart from ordinary men and women. Read the passage carefully. For each one, highlight the striking feature that Watson describes. Do the descriptions have anything in common? What aspects of description do the passages seem to focus on? So you've got a bunch of questions there on the right, and hopefully what you've done is you've answered them in full sentences, okay, and quoted and embedded from the text. So I'm going to go through the questions quickly. Okay, so the first piece, it's from the man with the twisted lip, and he refers to him as a sinister cripple. Would we use this word today? No, it would be derogatory, wouldn't it? It would be sort of against British values. This is written in the 19th century. Dickens also referred to Tiny Tim as a cripple, of course. So that's just the way language changes and what's acceptable now and what's acceptable back then. I mean, clearly there's a few more things that's not acceptable. One, namely, being that he resides in an opium den. Opium was a very addictive drug that we introduced to China, and but there were quite a lot of opium dens around the dark areas of London in Victorian times. The fact that he's got a hideous face is a tell that he's a bad guy. But I think the most damning thing is that he's a professional beggar. But what that means is someone who's begging to who doesn't really need to beg. He's just begging. He's making himself look like a beggar, and he's making money on people's charity, really. So that's not a very nice thing to be. I think there's still some professional beggars around today, but obviously there's some people that they've got no choice. So how the attitudes changed? They certainly have changed now, because you certainly wouldn't be able to call anyone a cripple. Okay. Next question. What impression does the writer give you of the monster? Well, it's underlined, but it refers to him as a creature. He says that he's a piteous spectacle. That's what I picked up. And even his hat is described as greasy leather cap. That's what people put the coins in. So that kind of shows that the fact that his cap's greasy is not very hygienic, is it? So it's not a very good character. And he doesn't refer to him even as a human being. Creature, piteous spectacle, greasy leather cap. Okay. Then later on, the next bit that's underlined, very long descriptive sentence. Why do you think Conan Doyle has included so much description in one sentence? He's almost trying to bombard the reader with what this character is like. So you're almost breathless by the end of it. There's one tricky word there, mendicants. All mark them out from amid the common crowd of mendicants. Mendicants just means beggars. It's a posh word for beggars. So what are the killer quotes in the description of the beggar? What kind of words have you highlighted? Okay, so the fact that it's a shock of orange hair, because remember, Sherlock wants his criminals to sort of really sort of be different to the other characters. The fact that it's a shock of orange hair suggests it's a surprise. Obviously, his face is disfigured by a horrible scar. He's got a bulldog chin, which, if you know what a bulldog looks like, is sort of like up. Maybe he's got sort of an underbite coming up. And then dark, very penetrating dark eyes. So he looks very, very peculiar. Oh, we got Pip here. Hello, Pip. You can say hello to Year 9? Hello. Hello, Year 9. So the other thing is, in contrast to this, he has wit. Because remember, he's a professional beggar, so he's kind of a confidence trickster. So his wit is he's ready to reply to anything, to any sort of remark that's passed to him by passers-by. So he's not stupid. Okay, so you've got the very sort of visceral description of what he looks like with his bulldog chin, shock of hair, horrible scar, penetrating dark eyes. But in contrast, he's got this wit. Okay, so hopefully you picked up some of those things. Okay, so the next one. This is from the Red-Headed League. How do we know that Holmes recognised Vincent Spaulding? Okay, so there's one sentence that he reacts to. There's one phrase that he reacts to, which is, has a white splash of acid upon his forehead. So the fact that he's small, stout built, quick in his ways, okay, that's a description, but it's pretty unusual to have a white splash of acid upon his forehead. Presumably it's a scar. And then we've got this simple sentence, Holmes sat up in his chair in considerable excitement. So that's the clue that sort of got him thinking. Okay, so that is when he recognizes him. The next question, highlight the killer description quotes. What can we infer about Vincent Spaulding? Okay, so he's got an unusual incident in his past, the splash of acid upon his forehead. But also there's this thing about his ears. Have you ever observed his ears are pierced with earrings? So I think certain classes would have had earrings, and actually in Victorian times, more people than you thought had tattoos. But the fact that these ears have been pierced by a gypsy, and again, this is a bit sort of 19th century racism, points to the fact that he's perhaps an unsavory character of having dealings with gypsies. Yes, so he told me that a gypsy had done it for him. Okay. So the next one is from the Boscombe Valley Mystery. How does Conan Doyle prepare the reader for the final description he was in the grip of some chronic and deadly disease? So it's a very detailed description here with quite a contrast in it, I think. He was a strange and impressive figure. So first of all, he almost describes all the negative things about him. Slow limping step, bowed shoulders, gave the appearance of a decrepitude. The fact that he said an appearance of decrepitude, on the outside he looked sort of really old and done in, gives us a clue that there's more to this character. And then it goes on with this conjunction. And yet, his hard, deep-lying, craggy features, so he's wearing his life on his face, and his enormous limbs show that he was possessed of unusual strength of body and character. So he's strong, not just in body, but in character as well. So he's got something about him, despite initially seeming really old. Tangled beard, grizzled hair, outstanding drooping eyebrows. And then you've got these two words to describe him, dignity and power to his appearance. So I get the impression that although this guy's a criminal, I think he's going to be a good guy as well. So it all leads up to this description. We've got another conjunction here which changes it, but his face was of an ashen white, while his lips and the corners of his nostrils were tinged with a shade of blur. So not healthy at all. And then you got the last line. It was clear to me that he was in the grip of some chronic and deadly disease. What technique is in the grip of? It's personification, as if the disease is a real thing throttling him. And why does Conan Doyle do this? I think he does it because this is going to be a factor later on in the story, and it's going to play something to do with the plot, and it's also seen as a real threat, certainly to him. One of it's going to be a threat to anyone else. Okay, so hopefully you picked up those and understood these bits. The next lesson is going to be quite tricky. This lesson is quite easy. The next lesson you've got to actually read Scandal in Bohemia. So I have uploaded the PDF. You might want to prepare before Thursday. When's your next lesson? Year 9s. Before Friday, you might want to read A Scandal in Bohemia before you do the next lesson. Okay, bye.